My 30th birthday was supposed to be a new beginning. My husband surprised me with a lavish party at a venue I'd loved since I was a girl. Then he called for a toast. "To my beautiful wife," he said, raising his glass, "who has inspired me to be with the woman I truly love." He gestured to my best friend, who stepped forward to take his hand. The crowd's cheers died in their throats. They'd been planning this for months. I stood there in my princess dress, utterly shattered. I walked out. That night, I began the life I was meant to live, alone. Hello. Welcome to Hurt Stories. If you had asked me on the morning of my 30th birthday what the worst possible thing that could happen would be, I might have said a flat tire, a sudden storm, maybe a forgotten cake. I could never have conceived of the weaponized cruelty that was waiting for me, engineered by the two people I trusted most in the world. My name is Anya, and my life, as I knew it, ended at exactly 9:47 p.m. on the night I turned 30. But in the ashes of that ending, a fiercer, truer self was born. I had been anxious about 30. It felt like a threshold. My marriage to Daniel, high school sweethearts, had grown comfortable, maybe a little quiet. My job in graphic design was stable but unexciting. I felt like I was drifting towards a middle I hadn't quite chosen. Daniel sensed it. He became secretive, whispering on the phone, coming home late. A stupid, hopeful part of me thought he was planning a surprise to shake me out of my funk. He was, just not the one I imagined. He told me we were having a quiet dinner with a few friends. He blindfolded me for the drive. When he removed it, we were in the courtyard of the glass house, a stunning, historic conservatory filled with orchids and twinkling lights. It was my fantasy venue, a place I'd pointed out in magazines since I was a teenager. "Oh, Daniel," I gasped, tears in my eyes. All our friends and family were there. My best friend, Chloe, rushed over to hug me. "Happy birthday, darling, you deserve this." She was radiant, vibrating with a nervous energy I mistook for shared excitement. The party was perfect. I wore a champagne-colored dress that made me feel like a grown-up princess. Daniel was attentive, holding my hand, smiling at me. For a few hours, the quiet anxiety of my life was replaced by the glittering certainty that I was loved. Then he tapped a fork against his glass. The room hushed. My heart swelled. This was the toast, the public declaration of love I'd been craving. "Thank you all for coming," he began, his voice smooth, confident. "We're here to celebrate an amazing woman, my wife Anya." He looked at me, and for a fleeting second I saw not love but a kind of terrifying resolve. "Anya, you have given me so much. You've been my rock, and you've inspired me in so many ways." He paused, a dramatic, practiced pause. "In fact, you've inspired me to be brave, to be honest, to finally be with the woman I truly love." A confused murmur rippled through the crowd. I smiled, thinking it was a clunky lead-in to a renewed vow. My brain couldn't process the syntax. He stretched out his hand, not towards me, but to the side of the room. "Chloe," he said, his voice softening in a way I hadn't heard in years. "Come here." Time stopped. Sound dissolved. I watched, as if from the bottom of a deep, frozen lake, as Chloe, my Chloe, who had held my hair back when I was sick, who knew every insecurity, every dream, walked forward. She took his hand. She didn't look at me. She looked at him with a triumphant, possessive love. The silence that followed was the loudest sound I have ever heard. It was the sound of a universe collapsing inward. I saw the horror on my mother's face, the dropped jaws of my friends. I saw the pity, the shock, the voyeuristic thrill. I looked down at my champagne-colored dress. I felt like a child playing dress-up, caught in a lie. The princess was a fool. The party was an execution. Daniel kept talking, something about being true to ourselves and not wanting to live a lie anymore. But his words were just buzzing noise. My body moved on its own. I set my glass down on a table with a precise click. I turned, and I walked. I walked past the frozen tableau of my old life, out of the conservatory into the cool night air. I didn't run. I walked with a dignity I did not feel, fueled by a single primal command: get out, now. I didn't go home. I drove to a cheap motel on the highway. I sat on the scratchy bedspread, still in my princess dress, and I felt nothing. A vast, hollow nothing. The betrayal was so complete, so theatrical, it bypassed heartbreak and went straight to a kind of existential numbness. They had not just had an affair. They had used the landmark of my life, the symbol of a new decade, to publicly perform their love for each other over the corpse of my dignity. It was a branding. They had branded me, the woman left behind in front of everyone I knew. The numbness lasted 3 days. Then it cracked, and what poured out wasn't sadness but a white-hot, incandescent rage. It was the cleanest emotion I had ever felt. It was not a fire that burned randomly, it was a laser. And I aimed it at one target, the life I was going to build next. I hired a lawyer that week, a pit bull of a woman named Gail who listened to my story without flinching. "We're going to take him for everything," she said, but I shook my head. "I don't want everything. I want my half clean and fast. I want out. I want no contact." I wanted the divorce to be a footnote, not the next chapter of their drama. While Gail handled the legal severance, I began the emotional and practical one. I quit my safe, stifling job. I used a small personal savings account Daniel didn't know about to rent a raw, sunlit studio space. For years, I'd done graphic design for other people's visions. Now I started painting, not digitally, physically. Huge, messy, chaotic canvases. I painted the feeling of that silence in the conservatory. I painted the champagne dress on fire. I painted my rage, my confusion, my awakening. I called the series 30. I also did something practical. I'd always been the social planner, the connector. I started a tiny, hyper-local blog called The Solo City, chronicling my rediscovery of my town, the best coffee shop for reading alone, the museum tour you could take without feeling self-conscious, the classes where no one asked about your partner. It was a guide for the suddenly single, the quietly independent. It was my letter to my former self. To my shock, it resonated deeply. Emails poured in from women and men who felt unseen, who were navigating their own, quieter betrayals. The blog grew into a newsletter, then a small community. I began hosting solo city meetups, group hikes, art gallery visits, book clubs with no couple-centric small talk. A year after the betrayal, as I'd come to call it, I held my first art show. I called it Birthday Suit, a play on the naked vulnerability I'd felt. I didn't invite anyone from my old life. The gallery was packed with people from my new community, with strangers who connected to the work. I sold every piece. That night, as I locked up the gallery, my phone buzzed. It was a text from a number I'd deleted but not forgotten. "Daniel, saw your show online. The paintings are intense. You look happy. I'm sorry for everything." I didn't respond. I didn't feel a surge of victory or old pain. I felt nothing. He was a curator of a museum I no longer visited. His opinion on the art in my new gallery was irrelevant. The ultimate change wasn't the career, the success, the independence. It was the interior shift. The betrayal on my birthday was the most violent gift I have ever received. It shattered the fragile, other-oriented shell I had lived in. In its place, I built a core of self-reliance so solid that no one's approval or love could ever be its foundation again. They betrayed me to be together, to start their true story. In doing so, they liberated me to author my own. My story isn't about them anymore. It's about the woman who walked out of the ruin of a princess fantasy and into the sturdy, beautiful, self-built reality of her own life. That birthday didn't take my joy. It handed me the brutal, necessary tools to build a joy that was entirely, irrevocably, my own. The best revenge was never making them regret it. The best revenge was becoming someone they could never even recognize, living a life they could never comprehend. And for that, in the strangest way, I have to thank them. They gave me the match. I used it to light my own way. Thanks for listening. If you want to hear more story like this, Please like the video and subscribe the channel. Hit the bell icon to get notified.